Geneva, it's wonderful to see you in Edmonton, performing here as a guest with Blackie and the Rodeo Kings, being an honorary queen tonight.
So. I know, it's exciting, right? Yeah.
I love the track that you recorded with them, How Come You Treat Me So Bad, one of the highlights of that record. Tell us about your relationship with Colin Linden for a start, who is part of course, Blackie and the Rodeo Kings.
Right. Colin and I met years ago. I don't know how many, don't ask me that question because I'm bad at those kind of math equations, but many years ago at the North Country Fair, right? And he was playing on the North Country Fair and my band was playing on the North Country Fair, and he kind of hung out. I was not aware of him or his work, but he hung out afterwards and listened to our show and really liked it and introduced himself, and we talked. We kind of hit it off and talked at that time about wouldn't it be fantastic to play some music together or maybe even make a record together. I mean, wouldn't that be wild? Do some, of the music that we both dearly love, some country blues, some Memphis Mini, some that kind of material. And years later, a few years later, we stayed in touch, and a few years later, Colin called me up and said, remember that conversation we had at the North Country Fair? I've got a record company that is willing to back it up. What do you think? And so we ended up doing actually 2 records for the Canadian label Northern Blues, and right. It just sort of snowballed from that conversation at the North Country Fair. So you never know, but I did have a special feeling when I met him, and that proved to be spot on. He's a fantastic artist and producer, and he's a good friend.
I love those 2 records you did with Colin for Northern Blues. And one of the things I really appreciate about it, those 2 records, is Richard Bell's playing.
Of course.
Another Canadian connection that you had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I adored Richard and his work, and that was an instant thing with Richard and I. And I'm sure there are many, many other artists and many other women, I'm sure, that had that experience of an instant connection with Richard. He used to jokingly refer to me as his future ex-wife. I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Well, I've had the pleasure of seeing your career develop over the last 10 years or so, since you've been coming to Canada and working with people like Colin Linden, Richard Bell, and of course bringing your own band. But it's been such a pleasure to see your acceptance worldwide. The U.S. blues community gives you so much respect. You get so much airplay on each of your records. And thinking back, the slow, steady way of your success is probably preferable than another way, for example.
I suppose I know that there's the view or the perspective of how the world sees me, or how the world sees the artist, and then there's how the artist sees herself in this case. And I think probably what's accurate is somewhere in between those 2 points, right? So I'm really grateful to be getting the recognition that I've been getting in the last few years. It's been wonderful, it's been terrifying in a wonderful way, and really exciting. And yeah, you know me well enough, Holger, to know that I'm the kind of person that just sort of, I keep my nose down and I just keep working.
Yeah.
So I'm not a person that is going gimme, and expecting things. Mm-hmm. So when they come, I'm surprised, and it makes me nervous, and all of that's really good. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to have the support that I have these days.
And it's nice to see you in Memphis at the Blues Awards on a regular basis, and sometimes share a table with you, and see you in the company of some of your heroes, and see you, with Denise LaSalle and people like Bonnie Raitt, Maria Muldaur.
That's been a profound experience for me. Something, again, that I never expected. I never expected to meet or let alone be embraced by, Koko Taylor, whose records I had studied and chewed on and, gnarred on for years, her material, and so, you know, the meeting her, and then one day having her actually invite me to be on her bandstand with her band in Chicago. I mean, just all of those kinds of things, and meeting Denise LaSalle and having Denise LaSalle say that she not only likes me, but likes my work. It just blows my mind. It blows my mind. And makes me want to work harder. It makes me want to work harder. I think that's good.
You're such a strong live performer.
Thank you.
And I'm just curious on, when you look back at some of the people that you admire, who you've seen on stage and who you've learned from, who would come to mind?
Hands down, Etta James, Koko Taylor, James Brown. The list goes on from there. Certainly, certainly Denise LaSalle in latter years, only because I didn't get to see her until the last 15 years or so in terms of live performance. Etta, the first time I saw Etta, I was in my 20s, about mid-20s, and a complete game changer for me in terms of live performance. There's been a lot of coverage, a lot of talk about my experience seeing Otis Rush as a young girl, and how profound that was for me, and what set the mark really high for me in terms of the experience to try to bring to the bandstand, to try to give the audience just even a piece of what Otis was doing night after night. Doesn't matter what night, Tuesday night, Thursday night, Saturday night, it didn't matter. And so there was that experience, such a profound thing that I would come to understand years later. Etta James in my early 20s, complete game changer the first time I saw her perform, and many times after that. I literally wept the whole time she was on stage, because she came out there, and this was before she had her, resurgence in her career. In other words, she was still doing her own booking, had the landline installed at her house, answered it using somebody else's name, and changed her voice to do her own booking, and she was still working at a grocery store in Riverside as a cashier. For real, that's for real stuff. And so she hadn't had her huge resurgence again yet, and so she opened a three-way package for Martha Reeves, James Brown. It was Etta James opening, and then Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, no slouch, by the way, yep. And then James Brown on a three-way package. She came out on the bandstand, didn't even have her own band, had Leo Nocentelli on guitar, and used a couple of people from Martha's band, the bass and the drums from Martha's band, and kicked off her shoes and sang as if her entire life depended on it. She had nothing to lose and everything to prove, and that's it. Isn't it? Isn't that what, isn't it supposed to be that far on, hanging 10 that far on the edge of the cliff? Isn't that what it, apparently, well, so I got so much out of that. And of course, Koko Taylor, years later, so.
Geneva, you've done 3 records for Alligator now, and
Right.
Your latest recording is called Stronger For It,
Right.
and it includes 3 original songs and some great covers. And how would you characterize the record overall?
I think it's in some ways, it's the best work I've done so far. It's my 10th record. Not that there aren't standout things, because I think that there are on the previous 9 releases, but this one I believe to be my best work in some ways, in many ways. It's certainly my most vulnerable. It's a different level of vulnerability for me, partly because I've got the original songs on it, the co-writes on it, which was really, again, terrifying and very exciting. Very exciting. I didn't, I've been asked for years, supported, nudged, bugged by various people around me to write original material. you know, you say the best things, you're really clever, you're really funny, why can't, you know, just put that in a song? I'm like, mm-mm. I didn't want to go there for a number of reasons, partly because I was afraid I would suck. That's the truth. But I guess I don't. Not completely. And so, because the original material has been some of what's been so heavily embraced by the audience. So there's original songs on the new one. I think it's my best work to date. It's certainly my most vulnerable. It's got the touring band on it, because they're really the best band I've had, best live performance band I've ever had. And, you know, it's a journey, beginning, middle, and end, to some pretty personal things that were going on with me at the time.
Could you mention one or two standout tracks that you love off the record?
I love them all, or they wouldn't be on there. So mentioning one or two, I would say There It Is, which is actually the first track, which is one that Dave and I wrote, my producer Dave Darling and I wrote. I liken it to the long and rich tradition, as you're aware of, in blues and soul music, of songs about the demise of your partner, you know. Boom, boom, out go the lights, I'm gonna murder my baby, your funeral, my trial, and of course Bessie Smith's Send Me to the Electric Chair, right? And so now there's another more modern one called There It Is. Probably I Won't Cry, which is another song that Dave and I wrote, which is a song about the determination of a woman, I suppose. And, you know, you can kick me, you can bruise me, but you're not going to get the best of me. You know, okay, so then there's Paul Thorne.
Some great covers. I mean, the songwriters that you pick to work with or to cover, and make it your own style. That's something I really appreciate. You know, you can take country songs or any kind of songs, and it becomes Geneva Magnus.
Well, that's lovely to hear. I always worry about that. I worry about that as an interpreter of other people's material, you know. I want to bring myself to it, someone else's song, and I want to bring authenticity to it. And if I'm not able to do that, then I don't want to do it. So Paul Thorne is such an amazing writer. I just adore him. And so The Things Left Undone, you know, is about regret, right? It's a beautiful song, yeah.
I wanted to acknowledge the wonderful work that you've done for foster care and Casey Family Programs as well. Right. Could you tell us a bit about your work in those areas?
Sure. So I am in the States, I'm a spokesperson for National Foster Care Month, and I'm the ambassador for Foster Care Alumni of America. So they're two really huge honors, two magnificent responsibilities. I do a fair amount of public speaking to judiciaries and social workers and to kids, to youth at risk, kids that are still in the system, and youth that have aged out. In the States we call that alumni, which is what I am because I was in foster care as a young girl. And it's really about encouraging and inspiring more good people to step forward for youth at risk in our country. It turns out it doesn't matter how much time you have, there's actually something you can do to help change the lifetime of a kid at risk, just like somebody did for me. I'm like living witness to that. And as an ambassador, to stand and encourage and inspire youth that are aging out of the system and that have aged out, help them to understand that whatever experiences they had, it doesn't have to be the defining moment in their lives. It can be part of the history, certainly, part of the landscape, part of the nasty, stinky fertilizer, but it doesn't have to define, it doesn't define me on a daily basis any longer, and that's so incredible. It's such a healing. If I can do it, then they can do it too. And it turns out that that's valuable. It's really a blessing.
Well, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, of course.
It's so good to see you, Jennifer.
It's great
Thank
to
you
see
so
you,
much.
Holger. Thanks.